Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Duffy, and welcome to this edition of Newsmakers. This is a digital streaming show. This is a podcast. This is a show where we are bringing in people who are making news in the city of Cleveland and Northeast Ohio, or who are having an enormous impact on our community. And that's what we're hoping to do, and we think we're going to do that today as Kevin Clayton joins us right now. Kevin is the Executive VP, Chief Impact and Equity Officer for Rock Entertainment. And let me give you the umbrella, because it's a big umbrella here, Kevin. Been with the Cavs for 7 to 8 years. And this includes the Cavs, the WNBA, the G League, the Monsters, and the Rock Sports Entertainment Network. Kevin, what does all of that mean as the Executive VP, Chief Impact and Equity Officer?
Yes.
That's a big job.
Yes, and Brian, first, thanks for having me.
Sure.
You know, when you were just kind of reading off all those different entities that we have.
You're thinking I better get to work.
Yeah, I know, right? Right. And with that, the umbrella that the Cavs have is the Rock Entertainment Group. And maybe like 6-7 years ago, we operated kind of independent, all the different brands that we have. And it's like, no, we're growing at such a pace that we want to kind of create an entity which will be kind of a placeholder for everything. So my work, and really the second part of my title, we start talking about social impact and equity. It's really the outcome of all the great things that we do. How do we create real impact in the community and having commonality across the Monsters, the Cavs, can't wait for our WNBA team to come, and all the things that we do at Rocket Arena. And then on the equity side for us, it's, you know, how do we make sure that internally and externally we're being equitable with our distribution of resources, but also how do we reach out to people to make sure that we're touching all communities, not just one or not just some, but how do we make ourselves available for everybody? Internally, what that looks like is just making sure we have an environment where everybody feels that they can bring their unique self to the table to work to accomplish their goals.
Yeah, that's so important in this day and age right now. And there are so much that you've done when we've been over at the arena before Cavs games, and I've had the opportunity to talk to you. I've always been fascinated every time we go. Seems like you've got something new and important to talk about. And let's start right there. This Meet Me Here court, this is kind of the newest thing, and it's right outside of the arena, right in the heart of downtown Cleveland. It's a basketball court. And what better thing for the Cavs to have, for Rock to have? Why is something like this, Meet Me Here, this basketball court, why is it so important in the community?
Yeah, so on the 19th of June, that's a date that's it's part of Cleveland history, right, because that's when the Cavs won the 2016 championship. So we had brainstormed for a while around what can we do that is memorable, that will also be legacy for us. And the court itself is part of a bigger picture, and we just unveiled that last week in celebration of the 2016 championship. It is a full NBA court, but also it's a park. Like, there's great green space, there's trees, there's benches, and the Meet Me Here part of it is just, we think that this is going to be an iconic place in downtown Cleveland where people are like, look, yeah, meet me at the park. And it's not just to come play ball, but it's also because there's other things that they can do. And right above that is the famous banner with all the players, but also kind of Cleveland, this is for you. That park is for downtown Cleveland, but really it's anybody. You know, right. I just came over, it's, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. There's guys and gals that are always playing over there at the park.
Yeah, you just showed me that picture, and it's full. And yeah, June 19th, because of winning the championship, Juneteenth, I know that's all so important to what you guys are doing. It is the 10th anniversary, too. What's going on around that? So important. We did a little thing on the newscast about it and what it meant. I'm a guy from Cleveland, how important it was for me to watch that team win that championship. What's going on with Rock in this great anniversary?
Yeah, so the celebration was amazing. And, we unveiled the court and the ribbon cutting that comes along with that. But then we invited 8,000, 9,000 people to come down. Right. We had 5,000 people come down. We had monitors and big screens all around the footprint. And we reenacted that game. So we showed the game, but the reenactment was really kind of cool because we had, all of Cleveland, short, tall, black, white, gay, straight, all of our community coming down. And we use that as a point to celebrate Juneteenth as well, because Juneteenth was kind of the ultimate day of freedom in our country for everybody. And just to see all Clevelanders there, food trucks of local vendors, face painting, all the things. And the funniest part was when it came down to Kyrie making that shot and he made it, the fans were cheering. I'm like, we know the outcome, but they were cheering because they were in the moment. And we had created this outdoor experience for our fans, and it was amazing.
Yeah, I bet it was. So, you know, that's great, and that is the inclusion part, and that is bringing the community together, and that's all part of what you and your team are doing. You know, I've got the next question I want to ask you is going to take a little time. So what I think I'm going to do right now is we're going to take a quick break here on 19 Newsmakers, and we're going to be back with Kevin Clayton here in just a few minutes.
True crime lives here. Watch Dark Side of the Land on 19 News Plus.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Duffy. Welcome back to this edition of 19 Newsmakers, our digitally streaming show and podcast. Our guest this week is Kevin Clayton, the Executive VP, Chief Impact and Equity Officer for Rock Entertainment. So, how have you and your team had an impact, a major impact, socially and from a responsibility standpoint? What have you done? What has your team done in our community, within the organization, and outside of the organization?
Yeah, so Brian, I'm going to take a moment to kind of talk about how we even got to this point. So I joined the Cavs in 2019, April of 2019, and I joined as the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. At that time, out of 147 sports teams, we were the fourth team of all professional sports to even have such a position at the level that I was at. And that was an honor to me to be able to kind of open the doors for the Cavs in this community. So when we talk about social impact and what has evolved over a period of time, you know, diversity, equity, inclusion is a strategy and a tactic to create social impact. So in itself, that's not what we were working on. So when you talk about what have we done, the kind of things that we have focused on is when the community is in need. And when I talk about being in need, and I'll just use the example of, it wasn't long ago where the SNAP benefits for our community were actually cut off, and this was cut on even on a national basis or what have you. We stepped up to actually help close the gap financially for those that are in need. So when you talk about social impact, and again, that's not based off of race, gender, that's a part of our community that is in need. So it's those sorts of things that we will do, making impact. And when we talk about social justice and responsibility, I'll give you another example. One other example is really working with our food service vendor, which is Airmark. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of food that goes unused during the course of one of our events. So we partnered with one of the food bank agencies to take that food that hasn't been served yet, that's kind of in the warmers or the heaters or whatever, to then take to shelters to try to help those that don't have food, to try to close the gap there. So when we talk about social responsibility, it's our responsibility to be able to take our resources that we have from what our great teams do on the court or on the ice, create that kind of drama, if you will, of excitement, but then take that to our community when they need us.
Yeah, and when I hear about stuff like this, and when I hear about people who want to do great work in the community, that starts somewhere. They brought you in to do that work, and you've succeeded in doing that work. But when I look at why this is going on, I look at one guy, and I look at Dan Gilbert.
Yes.
And none of this happens. We all know that without Dan. And what an unbelievable corporate citizen he's been. What he's doing with Bedrock and what he's trying to do with that beautiful facility down there on the river, and what he's doing in trying to create more development in our community. He's the guy that's making this all happen. He's giving you the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, and I appreciate you calling that out. Dan has a couple of philosophies that really drive what we do. One is that the enterprise is for more than profit. And if you are just chasing the dollar from a profit standpoint, then you don't reinvest like we're able to do. So, and the other thing is that Dan has told us that we are stewards over the arena, the team, and all of the assets. And being a steward means that it's the community's team. It's the community's building. The park that we talked about, that's the community's park. So our responsibility is to be good stewards over that, and how I'm able to be a good steward is listening to the community. And I've done a number of listening sessions and interviews and one-on-ones across all of Northeast Ohio to understand what different groups and segments of our population need so that we can be a good steward. And it's not a one-size-fits-all. So, no, Dan has really given us that responsibility and kind of the flexibility to make sure that we're carrying his vision and his values and beliefs of the Gilbert family into Cleveland like he's done in Detroit.
Yeah. What's also important is while you're doing this externally from the organization, internally within the organization, to make sure there is that equality within the organization. I know you've done a lot of work inside Rock as well to make sure that that is exactly what's happening in that organization. Correct?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And some of the things that we have done when I first came on board, and just the whole concept of what is diversity. And we began to define that. And diversity means every single one of our team members, because there were some that had this belief that diversity was about certain groups of people. Well, actually, Brian, you fit in our model and definition of diversity because you are part of our fabric. Then we started talking about inclusion. It's like, okay, we have diversity, which means that we have the absolute best talent, that we're open to anyone coming in with their ideas as long as they fit the qualifications of the particular jobs. But then it was like, okay, but you got to create a spirit of inclusion. And our CEO, Nick Barlage, has done a great job of making sure that we have a culture that includes everybody. And then lastly, when you even talk about equity, it's how do we balance that off? So internally, we've had programs, we have our team members involved, and we don't have an elitist type of organization.
Right.
All the way from Nick, all the way down to anybody kind of on the general team member standpoint are all involved in decision making and all the things that we do.
Okay. Well, our guest is Kevin Clayton with the Rock Entertainment Sports Group. He is the Executive VP of Chief Impact and Equity Officer. We'll be back with him in just a minute.
First Alert traffic and weather together all morning long. Stream 19 News this morning on 19 News Plus.
Welcome back to this edition of 19 Newsmakers. I'm Brian Duffy. Our guest is Kevin Clayton, the Executive VP, Chief Impact and Equity Officer for Rock Entertainment. It's been a heck of a conversation so far. Kevin, thank you for being here. I found this very interesting when I was kind of researching this interview. You're working on an alliance with the Guardians and the Browns. That's very interesting to me. Don't see that a whole lot. So what's the alliance all about? What's the goal?
So it actually all started when George Floyd was murdered, and our 3 general managers as well as our 3 head coaches then had kind of come together and say, hey, they had conversations. What are you doing? Well, what are you all doing? What are you doing? And everybody was trying to figure it out. At the time, we were the only team that actually had a chief impact officer that had that kind of responsibility. So the 3 GMs had asked me if I could lead all 3 teams in coming together. We went for 3 years of meeting every other week to figure out what can we do to help our community where a 1 + 1 + 1 would equal 20. And if you think about the brands individually, all of our brands are pretty proudful, really responsive brands. But if you put us all together, what could we do in leading the community around some of these social issues? So we identified 3 areas that we wanted to focus on: education, how do we close the digital divide, and then how do we bridge the gap between communication with law enforcement and youth. And we actually had created this program that was called Conversations for Change. And at that time, each one of us was having like a tentpole event around, like we had the NBA All-Star Game, the Browns had the draft. And what we were doing was around those events as well, we would bring in other NBA teams to have these conversations with law enforcement and youth. Around the NFL draft, we would do the same thing. So what were doing were kind of connecting law enforcement all across Northeast Ohio. It started with Cleveland, and then we ended up with 11 different municipalities that were having law enforcement and youth, kind of at-risk youth, come down to learn about each other. And Brian, one of the things that was fascinating to me is when law enforcement officers were talking about their biases and how they were afraid when they see a youth dressed a certain way, behave a certain way, and that was reciprocated around how kids were saying, well, when you just drive up, I'm afraid because of all the negativity. So we had them at the stadium. They were doing flag football, and actually during the wintertime when the ice was down, when the Browns had a hockey game, the kids were ice skating and the law enforcement was ice skating. On our floor, they were playing horse and going through different drills, and then softball games over at the field, at the ballpark. So we just tried to come together to see what can we do differently instead of just individually.
Yeah, sounds like that's certainly working. Kevin, let's talk about your background a little bit. In your job, I would imagine, keeps you incredibly busy, but you are also out there in our community doing other things. And I know you probably don't want to talk a whole lot about this, but the NAACP just gave you quite the honor for some of the work that you're doing in our community outside the umbrella, but connected to what you do with Rock.
Yeah, it's an amazing honor. It's one of the kind of most high-profile honors, and I'm absolutely just humbled by it. And it's the Corporate Citizen of the Year award by the NAACP.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. And it's really to recognize the things that, again, what the Cavs have allowed me to do, and also my personal passion to try to close the gap in our community between those that have, those that don't, and those that have access and those that don't. So I actually serve as the chair of the Urban League Board, Urban League of Greater Cleveland. I also sit on the City Club Board and was most recently appointed as a trustee for Cuyahoga Community College and sit on the Food Banks Board. And the combination of all those are my personal passions. So helping people to get food is a passion. Education is a passion. And then when I think about the City Club, having the opportunity of freedom of speech and teaching those that really don't understand how powerful their voice is a passion. So I'm able to connect my passion points with these really amazing organizations and serve as a servant leader with them.
That's a lot of work, and what you are doing is, and I'll say it so you don't have to say it, is you're a role model for people in this community. When people look at you, how do you get that across, or you just hope that that's something that's organic? I know you do a lot of speaking. Is that it? Do you kind of tell, look, and I don't mean look at me. I just mean this is what I'm doing. This is what you can do. This is what you can accomplish.
And Brian, I was actually just doing the work, and I didn't really understand the role that I had from that perspective. So when young men and women would ask me to mentor them, I've done that, and I continue to do that. And it's across multiple types of industries, so it's not just in sports. And then the speaking part, I'm okay with now telling my story, because where I am now is not where I came from. And where I came from growing up in Cleveland, moving into really a part of Shaker Heights that isn't kind of what you think about Shaker Heights is, with the mansions and living in a two-family home and all those things. Like, the scars on my back are very different than the suit that I wear today. Right. And I'm willing to share that so that I can inspire other people.
Well, you're doing great work with the Cavaliers and in our community. We appreciate that. I know a lot of people do. Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate you being here. You certainly are having an impact on our community. I appreciate the time you were able to spend with us.
Brian, it was my honor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll get you on here soon to learn what's new, because I know for a lot of people, it's not what am I doing right now, it's what can I do in the next year, what can I do in the next 5 years. And I have a feeling that's kind of how you look at things.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks again.
All right, our guest was Kevin Clayton, who is the Executive VP, Executive VP, Chief Impact and Equity Officer for Rock Entertainment. That's going to do it for this edition of 19 Newsmakers. We appreciate you being with us and hope you'll join us for our next streaming show, Mondays at 6:30.